like put at the beginning of
Mr. Barros, Mr. Barros will use this against me. Anyways, okay, all right.
All right, we're recording.
In 3, 2.
All right. Hello and welcome to Spartan Music Monday. Today we have Mr. Barry Giles with us to discuss his favorite album, Moving Pictures by Rush. Oh, and I'm sitting in Michaela's seat because Michaela's not here, unfortunately, but not to worry, she should be back next week.
Hope you feel well better.
Mwah. Okay, so I listened to the album, which I already knew the album, and I really love the album, but why is it your favorite album, you think?
I'll tell you, first of all, Rush is probably my most influential band. That I was exposed to it at a very, a younger age, my early teens, so before teens and stuff like that. I had a neighbor who was a drummer, and he had a band, and we were invited down to see one of their band practices. And he actually had the album 2112 Overture. Okay?
Yep.
So just the album cover alone, you opened it up, it was a multi-album.
Yeah.
And what I mean by album is actually a vinyl record. So most of your generation doesn't know what those are. So that was, just total awe visually. Then we heard the music, and it was just blew my mind. Most of the songs were instrumental.
Yeah.
You know?
Like they're 20-minute long.
Exactly. And this was coming from 3 musicians.
Yeah.
That's it. 3 Canadian musicians were producing this very powerful music for me.
Yeah.
Okay? So the next album came out, which was Moving Pictures, which I have right here. Thank you very much. Wonderful. And the music on this one really, got me.
Yeah.
It just got me. I had played the drums early on in elementary school and so on, and I was venturing into high school years and so on. And when I turned 16, I got my first drum kit.
Yep.
And my parents bought, and I was very, very much into the drums. So for those of you who do not know the band, once again, it was Geddy Lee on bass, keyboards, synthesizers, and so on. Neil Peart on drums, and Alex Lifeson on guitar.
Yeah.
When I heard Tom Sawyer, which is the first song on the first side of the album.
One of their biggest songs of all time.
Biggest songs. Actually, the 4 songs on their first side of this album was probably their most influential tunes.
Yeah.
For me, and for my friends.
It's like songs that if you don't even know who Rush is, you know them.
Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, which is about a car.
Yeah.
YYZ and Limelight. YYZ is an all-instrumental tune, and YYZ is the code for Montreal Airport.
Yep.
So that's where they came up with that song. The more I listened to the album, the more I wanted to hear more, from them. So I then went back into their catalog, got their very first album, and one of the songs on there was Working Man, which was one of their popular tunes also, and then built up through Crush of Steel and so on. And then the 80s came, and I became a teenager.
Yeah.
And started going to shows and so on. And one of my first shows with Rush was Signals, and then just moved on. And from that point, I saw every Rush show except for Snakes and Arrows, every tour up until their recent, the R40 tour, which was their last tour. And then, unfortunately, a few years after Neil passed away, which was, an
devastating.
Incredible. It was a strong day for me. Just know I never met the gentleman. I read his books. I read his thing. Now, he also wrote a lot of the lyrics.
Crazy lyrics. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Exactly. And he was an author. He produced books about things. But he was so creative in his writing and things like that, that he would, when they were in Lee Studios in Montreal, I think it was this album that they were creating. I saw a documentary, and they were talking about how Neil would go and write lyrics, then come back and give them to Getty, and then they would try to perform, and then they would have to kind of adjust some of the lyrics because they were so intense, so unique, that it was difficult for Getty to sing. So they had to revamp everything and so on. But this is the type of music you listen to the lyrics, you listen to the music. There's a message in everything, not, go out and save the world or anything like that. But it was just a story.
Yeah.
Like Red Barchetta is about a car.
That's like my favorite song of theirs.
It's about, I think it was either, because Neil was a huge car enthusiast, motorcycle enthusiast, and stuff like that. Red Barchetta was a European vehicle that somebody had in their barn, and and they cleaned it up and got it out there and so on. But this album really got me more involved in playing music myself and so on. I could never play like Neil. Okay,
they're like crazy.
Now I will tell you a quick story. 8th grade, I was at Bellingham High School in 8th grade. This transfer student came in. His name was Lee Calderon. And I got to know him through history class. And come to find out, we were in band together, and he was a drummer. And I was like, oh, wow, you're a drummer. He goes, yeah, you should come to my house, and we'll, see my drum set and everything else. So one day after school, we walked to his house with another friend of mine, and we walked into his basement, and there was a 13-piece Tama birch kit. And I looked and was like, you gotta be crazy. You could play this? I'm playing the 4 or 5-piece drum kit. He's playing the 13-piece kit.
Wow.
So he got behind the kit, turned on. What do you think he turned on first?
Oh, something from there, definitely.
He turned on Rush.
Oh.
And played Tom Sawyer note for note.
Like successfully?
Successfully.
Perfect. Wow.
Then he played YYZ.
In 8th grade? 8th grade?
8th grade.
Oh my God.
Okay. He went on, and 2 other friends of ours, actually, they were from Millis at the time, and they were in a Rush tribute band. Now we're talking 1980, 85, 86, and so on. And they played I should say, at Millis High School and stuff like that, and all Rush. And it was amazing. And it was 3 people, guitarist, drummer, bass player, keyboard, singer. Yep.
I've seen a Rush cover band like that before. I forget where it was, but I saw them, and it was like really scary accurate.
Yeah. The one around here is called Lotus Land.
Oh, that's the one I saw. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were really good.
They were actually on a competition show.
Yeah.
For the best cover band and things like that. It was on Access TV. I have not seen them. I've seen videos, and scary, crazy. Even the singer, keyboard player, bass player looks like Getty.
Looks like Getty Lee, and it's insane. I went with my dad, and it was very interesting because I'm like, oh, it's a Rush cover band. They're not going to be Rush, but then I was like actually shocked by what they were doing.
The drummer from that band's incredible.
Yeah,
I mean, all 3 of the musicians. There's another one that is actually out of Quebec, that I follow on YouTube. That they're just amazing. The drummer sings.
Yeah,
but it's just, they're amazing.
It's insane how like people can even get close to that, because like you said, it's like literally just 3 people making all this music. So it's and it's insane. Like nobody's done it. Nobody's ever gonna do it the way they did it.
Don't get me wrong. There are other
bands.
There are bands. At that time, another Canadian 3-piece band was Triumph, and they had many hits in the 80s and so on. There, with the invention of digital technology and things like that, and even Rush incorporated that. Yeah. If any of you get a chance to go on YouTube and look up Neil Peart and see his drum solo, he actually has a back-to-back kit. He has his acoustic kit and his electronic kit. Yep. And it literally rotates.
I've never got to see them in person, but
it was insane.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, in the R40 tour, this was kind of unique. And it was kind of thrown us off what they were doing. So basically what they did is they took their catalog and started from present.
Oh, yes.
And worked their way back.
Yeah.
Right? But while they were doing it, they had people on stage disassembling their stage
That is so cool.
persona and building, other things. So if you go like Getty at one point, he had dryers
Yeah.
behind him, and then was working. He'd have T-shirts in there, and then they throw them out to the crowd and everything else. So they actually had. Oh, and then after that, it was rotisserie chicken. He had 3 rotisserie chicken stations behind him.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was just like, okay, so people were coming out and removing them.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they took a break, and then the second set they had these Marshall stacks and these Ampeg stacks, the amplifiers, and as they were singing, people were coming out on ladders and taking them down until they were down to their very first album, where they played in a high school gym, and it was a single amplifier and a bass amplifier on a chair.
Mm.
And then Neil's
That's
drum kit.
insane.
It was. We were like, what's that guy doing in red jumpsuit? He's like, wait, he's taking down the amp. They're still playing.
Yeah.
So
I've never got to see them, unfortunately, because when I was too young the last time they came around, and
Right.
obviously they're like loud. Their concerts are loud.
I've been to louder.
I mean, yeah, but like for a 5-year-old kid's
Yes.
brain, yeah.
But I'll tell you this, you'd be amazed.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
I've seen plenty of videos.
I'll even, for me personally, I play in a cover band.
Yeah.
2 cover bands, and my neighbor brings their kids out, and they're all, one's an infant, the other one's probably about 3 years old.
Yeah.
And they wear headphones when they play.
Yeah.
They come out to hear us and things like that. You see, and I think, once again, there are very many documentaries about Rush out now. And they're, I've seen them all, and the generations that are going back to hearing and listening to this music again, or for the first time, I should say, it's getting younger and younger and younger
Yeah.
as the years go by. But it was, this was a very influential album for me. It got me through, and their albums ever since, from this point on, I was like able to go and see them perform live and go through the different changes. Like in the 80s, everything, became like the electronic era came in and stuff like that. So they incorporated electronic drums, they incorporated more synth, they
Keyboard.
keyboard. Yeah, it was crazy. So, and then as they, progressed, their writing progressed, because then it's my generation that listened to them. So it got a little bit more intense, like Clockwork Orange and Snakes and Arrows and things like that. And then they did their anniversary tours. They did their R30, R40 tours. And that's when they just took their complete album. And every night was a different set.
Wow.
Because they would incorporate,
Different
they had
songs.
so many songs that can incorporate.
And like
things.
long songs too.
Yes, and back then, I mean, they were considered a progressive rock band.
Yes.
Okay, a lot of progressive rock bands, you can go back even for Genesis was at first with Peter Gabriel was a progressive rock band. If anybody's, perfect example would be if you ever saw the Queen movie.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
When they go into the A&R guy and they say, nobody's going to listen to a 12-minute song.
Yeah, and then
And
it was
guess
like the biggest song.
hit.
Yeah.
And then when the movie came out, it became a big hit again.
Yep.
Again.
It just recycles.
Yeah. And then, some of the other bands I grew up on, like Styx and REO Speedwagon, I say that because I just recently saw them too with Loverboy. But, they weren't like 3-4 minute songs like you hear today. You were getting like a pretty big, very long song. And once again, incorporating lyrics and instrumental and parts and stuff like that.
And the 2112 overtures, 20 minutes of just straight instrumental music.
But it's broken down.
Yeah, it's like telling a story.
Exactly. That's exactly where it came. Just like with Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
It's telling a story.
I just think it's insane. Like, how do you even think to do that? Like, how do you think to let's tell a story through just instruments? It's going to be 20 minutes.
Right.
And
well, and then again, remember, back then, they were, true musicians.
Yes.
They knew their artwork very well, and they enjoyed doing it.
Yep.
It wasn't a job for them.
And it was only 3 of them.
Yeah,
It was like,
only 3 of
it's
them.
insane that much
You know,
sound
there are
can come
today.
from 3
Today
people.
there are some bands that's use
Yeah.
3 musicians. Okay, but a lot of work that goes into that. There's a lot of overdubbing. There's a lot of backtracking. There's a lot of things like that.
Yeah.
So it sounds much fuller, but it's all done electronically. You know, there's 3 musicians on stage, but there's a backing track.
Yeah, Rush
Or
did
there's
not have a backing track.
Rush did not have a backing track.
Never.
Everything was controlled by either MIDI,
Yep.
you know, the MIDI on the Moog or keyboards and things like that, or they played it. You know, even Alex Lyson had an extensive sound repertoire because of his pedal board that he designed and things like that. He could make that guitar any sound he wanted.
Yeah.
And, you know, these 3 guys were I could tell you, my group of friends, you know,
Yeah.
probably most and all large majority of my friends are all musicians. And I could say that Rush was a huge influence. Even my best friend, I remember when he started taking bass lessons, he bought I think it was a 401 Rickenbacker, which was identical to what Geddy Lee had. So it was just like, we knew where we were going when
Yeah.
we were younger and things like that. But
Yeah.
So I do recommend, if, you know, you can go back on YouTube and watch some videos of some of these songs from live to even some of the, yes, they did videos in the 80s. And MTV actually played videos in the 80s.
And Getty had his like beautiful hair.
Long
and-
hair pulled out in a
Yeah.
ponytail. They had the what I call the Miami Vice years, where they had the jacket and the T-shirt and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And then you can actually see the progression as they age
Oh, yeah.
and stuff like that, but they never slowed down.
Getty's voice too is a voice like you've never heard.
Never heard. Never
And
heard.
I don't think
Very,
I'm not sure if you're like hear something like that again. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy.
very high pitched. But
Exactly.
his range was
Insane.
insane.
Like absolutely, like you hear his voice and you immediately go, "Oh, that's Rush." And
Right.
you know it. Even the
Yep.
like instrumentals, you're like, "That's Rush," and you
Right.
know it for a fact.
Right. Yeah, and I you know, once again, you know, Neil passed away several years ago, and
Which was a shocker. Nobody
Well-
had a clue.
yes and no. We had, my opinion, there was something, we knew there was something going on health-wise.
Yeah.
And even with Alex, too. Alex came out and said he was having issues health-wise and things like that. We never knew it was brain cancer.
Yeah, that's why I think it was such a shocker, because
Yeah.
obviously it was.
They kept it
low-key.
under wraps.
Yeah.
You know, the rumors of R40 being their last tour, everybody was like, no, it's not going to happen.
That's what my dad kept saying, because he obviously went. He's been to like 12 Rush
Yeah.
shows probably.
No, it's like, it's never going to happen. These
Yeah.
guys are never going to stop. They're going to die behind the drum kit and stuff. And then after R40 ended, there was signs. I will say this, because at the end of a show, Neil stands up, waves.
He came out.
He
didn't
left. Right. He leaves.
Yeah.
He literally, once again, if you go to some of the documentaries, there's a camera following him into a car, onto the bus,
Yep.
and away he goes.
He didn't want to interact with fans.
Didn't want to
really.
interact with fans or anything else, and so on. There was one show where he came out
Yeah.
on the stage with Geddy and Alex and bowed.
Yep. And that's never what he does
Nope.
ever.
Early on, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So things were like,
Interesting.
something's going on. So, but I can tell you, while he was going through it, and no pun intended, he did not miss a beat.
Nope.
Not a beat. You couldn't tell that he was suffering or anything like that.
Nope.
We thought it was arthritis.
Yeah.
That's what.
Which
you
would
know,
make sense.
Which would make
because-
sense.
yeah.
I mean, I have calluses on my hands from playing drums
Yeah.
and things like that. My joints hurt and so on. But the way he played, I could not imagine
Oh my God.
living through the pain that
No, yeah.
you're in. But he was just a incredible musician, an incredible writer, and you know, some of the books that I read, he was just an incredible person. He had some tragedies in his life. His first wife passed away, and his daughter passed away very shortly after that. And that's when he went on a bicycle tour of the world to try to collect his thoughts. We thought back then that was it,
Yeah.
that he never got behind a drum kit. But he actually reinvented himself. He actually went back and took drum lessons.
Yeah. Like,
What?
you're Neil. You don't need to do that.
Are you insane?
Yeah.
You're going back. He went back to some of the old teachers and relearned stuff. He was actually performed with the Buddy Rich Big Band. And Buddy Rich is another famous jazz swing drummer from the early days. And he played with them, and he incorporated that in his drum solo.
Yeah.
You know, towards the end of his drum solo, he does that little swing kind of thing
Yep.
with the video going on behind him and stuff. That blew my mind. I saw that in R30, and I was just like, holy cow, this guy could play everything.
Yep.
You know? And I was like, damn, that's awesome. Sorry.
goodness.
Darn, that was really good. You know, so I was just, you know, floored by what he came back. And, you know, the many books that he wrote about his travels. You know, I remember reading one book. He was in the New England area. He actually drove through Arcadia Park in Maine.
Yeah.
And, you know, he was saying how he stopped at a local convenience store and people didn't know who he was. You know?
That's who he liked it, though. He was like, I don't want to talk to people.
He was a very quiet guy. He was very to himself. During interviews and so on, he opened up a little bit more and more. But he never wanted the limelight, no pun intended.
Great song.
Limelight,
One of my favorites.
That, you know, he let Geddy and Alex take care of that part.
Yeah.
And so on. But I was just, and it was funny, last night I was, I had a pair of his drumsticks, the 747s, ProMark. No pun, no, not encouraging anybody to buy that, but I have a rack of drumsticks that I, you know, from the High Rock Cafe and some other stuff, but I do have at the bottom, I have his 747 drumsticks there, and I was just in my office doing some things, and I looked up and I was like, because I was like, oh, where's my album? I gotta get that tomorrow. And I was like, damn, I was lucky enough to see him play, you know, at Boston, and you know, I thought how lucky I was to actually be able to follow his career and see him perform, see him talk, and things like that. And, you know, it gets you thinking sometimes. It's like these people, I'll use the word, he was my idol.
Yeah.
He was I know I'd never be able to play like that, but I enjoyed watching him play.
To him and stuff.
I enjoyed watching him play.
Yeah.
All the time, no matter what. And I enjoy the people that are carrying that on.
Yeah.
You know, like Lotus Land and other bands playing those songs, because it brings back memories. You know, like I could say R30, I was with my friends, Fred, Tim, Rob. You know, Lee was in Florida, so we had the phone up back. We didn't have FaceTime back then. You know, but we were able to hold the phone up and he could participate with us and stuff like that. So it definitely, you know, brings back, you know, a lot of memories for me. And even, you know, the neighborhood I grew up in, I could say, you know, there were a lot of musicians, a lot of kids playing guitar and drums, and they were my first influences. And then he was probably my second.
Yeah. I think Rush for me is important because I grew up with them. My dad's obsessed with them, has all the
nice
books.
Guy. I gotta meet him.
Oh yeah, he's so excited about this episode. I was telling him about it, and he's like, "Oh my god, I'm so excited to watch it." But yeah, I grew up with them. I never got to see them because my dad didn't know. Everyone didn't know that was their last one.
Right.
They kept. Oh yeah, right. He's like, "Oh, I'll take you to the next one." Then Neil passed away, and there was a month of mourning in my house.
Yeah,
over it.
It
was devastating.
I mean, I wish I had my phone. I have a picture of Neil, you know, at the end of every show. He's got his head down, he's got his hand up like this. And that's been my screensaver on my phone for a long time. And then, you know, I have a collection of books. I just actually bought a illustrated book of his quotes. So I want to say, this goes back 10 years ago, there was an illustrator who actually did a coloring book and a comic book for Rush.
That's so cool.
And so the guy has all these characters of them in different situations with Neil quotes. So once in a while, it's a little 5-inch book. I flip through it and be like, all the world's a stage. We are merely players, performers, and portrayers.
Yeah. Limelight.
What?
Yeah. How do you come up with that?
But he's like, yeah. I mean, even Okay, once again, we're going to do a little history lesson. This is not an original album because unfortunately mine went missing. But back in the good old days, when you bought an album, you got, the album, the vinyl actually came in a little folder, things like that. And on the folder was information about, who did what in the band, various pictures of the band and so on. But on the other side was the actual lyrics of every song, and you could read along with them as they sang and everything else. And to me, it helped enhance the song.
Yeah.
Okay. Limelight, living on a lighted stage, approaches the unreal for those who think and feel, in touch with some reality beyond the gilded cage. And it's like, where did they come up with this stuff?
I don't know. But for some reason, it means something to me.
It means, like Red Barchetta I was telling you about. Yeah, my uncle had a country place that no one knows about. He says it used to be a farm before the motor law. And then, he talks about, he literally goes in and talks about a car.
Yep.
And things like that. And it was back then, once again, I was probably around your age, when I was getting into this and so on. It was something that we sat at home and we put the vinyl on and we listened to it. If I didn't have it, my brothers might have had it. Or we did a lot of this at my friend's house.
Yeah.
My friends Greg and Lisa Kubreth, who lived across the street from us, who are Uxbridge residents. And they had older brothers and sisters, and we would always listen to their albums. I don't know if they knew that, but so we got influenced by Queen, Styx, Rush, Triumph, all these great bands that to this day I still will listen to.
I always joke about how Rush is like their fan base is nerds, and I can say that because I'm a nerd, but they're not like the cool band. Like they opened for Kiss in 1974.
Yes,
but Kiss is like what you consider they're cool, like they're Kiss. But Rush, no, they're for the nerds. Their lyrics and everything.
Once again, and I will agree with that.
Yeah,
I will agree wholeheartedly. There was you were a very special person if you liked Rush.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, we used to play a game when we would go. How many females can we find in the crowd? Not many females liked Rush. As you got older, it was different.
Yeah.
But and it was largely, male-dominated crowd and things like that. But we, were listening to the music. We were listening to the lyrics.
Yeah.
We were studying everything that was going on, and it clicked.
Yeah.
It clicked. Now, once again, there were many other 80s bands. I got into the hair genre, the big hair stuff, and so on. But they were always there.
Yep.
They went through disco. Remember, these guys started in the 70s.
Yep.
Okay? So they went through the disco era. They went through, progressive. Well, they were progressive rock. They went through the flannel days. What was that? That was with Pearl Jam and all
Pearl
that.
Jam.
Yeah, when everybody said, hair bands were gone. And so these guys guess what? They had hair. And they kept going and going and going because they always had a fan base.
Yep. A very unified one, too.
Yes. Yeah. They have, once again, some of the documentaries that are out. There was one that actually talks about the Rush fan group.
Oh, yeah.
Where they have the convention every year. And
I think me and my dad cried over that one.
Yeah. There was, I never knew they existed, but I knew in my small circle of friends, and even outside my small circle of friends, we were, dedicated. But we went and saw other bands.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But
they were your number one.
They were there.
Yep.
They were always there. And once we heard they were coming, we got tickets.
Yep. That's like me and Taylor Swift, but we already knew that.
Yeah, we knew that, and of course I was supposed to do my homework and
That's okay.
listen to your favorite album, which was
Reputation by Taylor Swift.
I did a little bit of research, but let's segue into yours now, Okay? We'll discuss that. I was a Taylor Swift fan when she came out with The Country.
Mm-hmm.
And
her debut
stuff. And then when she crossed over, I had a lot of doubt.
Really?
I did.
Okay.
I don't know why. I think it was just at the time, the people that were Lady Gaga, Pink, all them. I was like, how is she going to compete with them?
Yeah.
And then of course in the country world, everybody was like, oh, you can't do that.
Yeah.
That's wrong. But she did it
Successfully.
very successfully.
Yes.
We'll get into her present situation and so on. But it was, the way I saw it is, she's a musician. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of musicians out there that cross genres.
Yeah.
Or will incorporate different genres in their album and things like that. She took a big leap.
She did.
And went into the pop scene and things like that. Very successful and so on. But not only that, she writes for other people.
I know.
She writes for other pop artists.
Yep.
And things like that, which is very common in country.
Mm-hmm.
In country music, a lot of the hits that you hear, those people necessarily wrote.
Mm-hmm.
There's a team of writers and musicians in Nashville that work in an area where they write for other people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're successful that way. They might not be a performer. They might not want to tour the world.
Yeah.
So they'll write music for other people. But I know she's had some, bad raps and things like that about
Bad reputations, you can say.
Drop the mic, walk away. Yeah, but I mean, she has made it work.
Yep.
And continually to make it work, obviously, because she has the top 10 hits on the Billboard right now.
Yes.
With her new album. And so she's doing something right.
Yep.
But she's not caving to the business side.
Mm-mm.
So on. She was, even in country, she was very forward with what her music was, how she was going to perform her music and things like that at a young age.
Yeah, she wanted to write her own stuff because
Right.
that's what she loves to do.
So, I mean, I commend her for, she's a great artist. First of all, I would listen to her. I just didn't have an opportunity to listen last night.
That's okay.
But I do listen to country music. I'm in a country, band also. And when her stuff comes on, I don't switch the channel.
Yeah.
I'm like, she's a good performer and stuff like that. And even some of the country artists that she's written for and pop artists I listen to.
Yeah.
She is, an incredible person. She's just, I never met her personally, but I know some people on the Cape that have met her.
And the stuff she just does for other people.
Yeah.
Like she'll invite fans to her house.
Yeah, I think a lot of the younger artists, that her generation and things like that, appreciate the people that have gotten her where she is today.
Yeah.
Okay? The people behind her, knowing that the fans are the ones that do that. I think like Pink. I always, I watched a documentary on her and, her family life and her travel and stuff like that. And she's just like open and honest.
Yeah.
Just like Taylor is. I think she is, once again, a great musician. She plays instruments. She sings. She performs and things like that. And she's going to, I don't think this is going to be her last big album.
She keeps just getting bigger. So when she switched from country to pop with 1989 in 2014, that became her biggest album. And then she just came out with Midnights, and Midnights beat that in a week. So she's like growing, if anything, right now.
Well, that's it. And I think as an artist, that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like even for me as a musician in a cover band, okay, I always want to learn new music. If I'm playing the same music over and over and over and over again, I get bored.
Exactly.
Okay? So as an artist, these people go out and they perform their songs over and over and over again.
Yeah.
But when they are done with that tour and then go on, they take a break and then they start writing again and they get their creative juices going.
Make a new sound.
Yeah. And think of, okay, how can I outdo that one?
Yeah. Taylor Swift's only competition is herself at this point.
That's putting it very well, because I was going to say, she's successful at doing that.
Yes.
And there are some artists that were successful at doing that. There are artists that aren't. But once again, like Rush, they develop a core group of listeners, fans, and they stick with them.
Yep. Because it used to be like around, like, before Reputation came out, I would say probably, like, 2015, 2016, that's when everyone hated Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
You would get made fun of for even liking her.
Oh, she sold out. She's doing it for the money. Blah,
yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
all that stuff. And then she came out with Reputation,
Mhm.
which was her album, which is basically, like, a big middle finger to the whole
Yeah,
world.
okay,
Yeah.
You guys, once again, you can make all the, with social media that you guys use quite a bit and everything else, you can make all the accusations you want.
Yeah.
And things like that. Ultimately, these people in the spotlight or limelight,
Limelight.
you got to develop a tough skin.
Yeah.
You really do. I mean, personally for me, when my friend Lee was playing drums, I quit. I was like, I'm never going to be like him.
Yeah. And that's
I'm
okay.
never going to be like him. It took me almost 20 years later to realize and say, you know what? You're right. I'm not going to be like them.
You've got
or
your own
him
style.
or him or him. Everybody's going to be better. Somebody's always going to be better than you.
And you're your own person. Your
Exactly.
sound, no one can find your
Exactly.
sound either.
So it was my younger brother who got a bunch of his buddies together and said, hey, let's do a jam band. Let's have some fun. So we were playing. He called me. And unfortunately, at that time, I just sold my drum set.
Oh, no.
And I was like, you know what? Yeah. So I ended up buying an electronic little practice kit and got to playing with him. And they got my juices going again. And, I played with them for a few years and went to an audition. An audition came up. And I was like, yeah, why not? Let's give it a try.
Yeah.
I did. And I got into the band. And, I performed. And once again, wasn't, better than the other drummer they had previously, but I did my best and I worked hard at it and things like that, and then moved up to it. That band broke up, moved into another band.
Yeah.
That band broke up, moved into another band. But now I'm in my mid-50s. Yes, I'm old. And I'm playing and I'm enjoying it because I'm not worried about it.
Yeah. You're doing what you love.
I used to play and look out in the crowd and be like, he's a drummer, that person's a drummer, that person's a drummer. And I could feel them criticizing me.
Yeah.
Didn't bother me.
I mean, if you're doing what you love, like, no one can tell you you're wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I really love doing it. And, it's a lot of work. And, but, I can kind of relate to other musicians, professional musicians. I'm just on a much, much, much lower level, but there's a lot of work. There's a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of effort in this. I got a gig tonight.
Yeah.
I got to cover a soccer game this afternoon, then go from here to the end of Rhode Island to play, and then come home and then cover 2 sporting events tomorrow. So it's, some of these things can knock you down and you get tired of doing it. And sometimes they kind of, you thrive on it.
Yep.
And have fun doing it. But, if there is anyone out there who's considering, playing an instrument or starting a band or being in a band or anything like that, I give it a try. Don't worry about what other people think, because it's not worth it.
Nope.
If you enjoy doing it, and you work at the craft, you'll get better.
See, hard work is the thing, because I feel like a lot of people, and maybe it's just like my generation, I feel like a lot of people don't understand that it takes hard work to be good at something, or like the way you want to be, that you can't just like slack off.
Well, like I tell you guys, even in the class, in education and things like this, video production, I always tell people the best way to learn is by doing.
Exactly.
Okay? You want to know how that camera works or how that camera sets up? Set it up. Turn it on. See what it does.
And obviously, it's paid off, because when we first started filming stuff, we just completely were like,
Yeah.
And we're getting better at it each time.
Right. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Yeah.
It's like everything. Sports, work, classroom, things like that. The more you do it. If you think about your education up until now, what was the most... It was very repetitive, wasn't it?
Over and over again.
Until what? We beat it in your head.
And then you move on to something new.
Exactly. And then you absorb all that information. Yep. And you then, carry that information. And as you get older, you go through it when you're a teen. I'll never use algebra again. I'll never use this or anything like that and everything else. Then you get older and you'll be like, I knew that back in high school. I know what I'm doing. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Or when you get older and have a family and have kids, and you're like, if they don't change the way you learned it,
Yeah.
like they have.
Oh my God. My parents used to get so mad.
But it's like you can help your child. You can say, I remember that.
Yeah.
But of course, also in your day with Google.
Yeah. It's
everything
not
else.
too hard.
Yeah, no, it's pretty easy. So, I know we've gone over 30 minutes. We talked
Yes.
with Mr. Barros about trying to say 30 minutes. But
I'm going to rate the album real quick, which
Okay.
is off topic of what we were talking
Sure.
about. But I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. And that's, well, I grew up with Rush, obviously. So it's personal to me at this point.
Right.
So, and I have a lot of memories of me and my dad just driving in the car with it blasting and the windows down and just
best way to listen to it.
screaming the lyrics
Absolutely.
and all that stuff. So I have to give it a 10 out of 10. I can't not. And it's one of the greatest albums of all time.
Yes,
And no
it's
one can
there.
deny that. Even if
Right.
like you don't like Rush. You
Right.
have to acknowledge the musicianship of that
Exactly.
album and all their other albums too.
Right,
So
exactly.
that's why I give it a 10 out of 10.
Okay. For Reputation, I know I listened to it a little bit and everything else, but once again, admiring the work that she's done on hers and everything else, I'm giving it a 9.
Okay.
I do like the sound
Yep.
that she's creating and things like that. It is different from some of the pop artists that she was, in that time that she was coming out with, and of course she also has her unique style.
Yeah.
And things like that. I do put a lot of effort. When I consider a artist, I also consider their performance, live performance, video performances,
Great
things
live
like
performer.
that, and things like that. So it is. She's the all around, is what I call an all around musician
Yes.
and artist, because she can put it on an album, she can act it out on stage. She can do all that, like Pink.
Yep.
And Lady Gaga and things like that. They make it a theatrical, which
They
is
make
what,
it an event. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
But her album, the few songs that we listened to last night, even my girlfriend was sitting at home going, "You listen to Taylor Swift?" I go, "You know this stuff?" She goes, "Yeah, I've heard this." Blah, blah, blah. I was like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, I gotta do a little homework and so on." And she goes, "Oh, cool." And she was listening. I looked over. She was on her computer and she was bobbing her head to it. I was like, "Cool."
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was. I would definitely go back and probably listen more.
Yeah.
When I get that time to do that.
Well, if you need any
So-
recommendations, I'm here every day.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah, you're here in class every day, but I think the show is also helping
Yeah.
people to say like, maybe I'll listen to that album.
Yeah. That was kind of our goal. So to talk
Absolutely.
about stuff.
Awesome. All right,
All
wrap it up.
right. Thank you for watching Spartan Music Monday. We hope to see you next week. Bye.